Hello, everybody. It's me, Dia Dynasty, one half of La Maison de Rouge. And it's our usual Monday night broadcast where we bring in some lovely creature from the BDSM world and speak to them about all kinds of things. So today we have the alluring Mistress Bella Lugosi. Mistress Bella Lugosi, she, her, is a professional dominatrix based in Berlin. She specializes in classic dominance, roleplay, sadomasochism, medical fetish, and sensory exploration. Since her initiation at Studio Avalon, which is in Berlin, Lugosi has established a name in the femdom scene thanks to her mindful approach to BDSM, many successful international tours, and numerous filming collaborations together with other notable mistresses, also the renowned Otherworld Kingdom. Dubbed a Sexpert by German press, Lugosi plans on expanding her work to sex education and empowerment coaching, plus her return to the music industry with the launch of her own imprint, Dressing for Pleasure. So, everybody, I would like to introduce Mistress Bella Lugosi. Hello, Mistress Bella Lugosi.
Hello, Dia Dynasty. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for making time. I know that you're in Berlin.
Yes.
And it is a much different time over there.
Yes, it's 1 o'clock in the morning over here. But I'm a night owl anyway, so that's fine.
That's so perfect. So how are you today?
I'm pretty good, actually. There's a lot of positive things happening. We weren't allowed to work for quite a long time due to Corona. So basically, since the most recent lockdown, which was in the summer, we've been able to work again. And it's just been really nice back out there and to travel again and meet people and I don't know, just do what you love to do instead of being forced to sit at home.
Yeah.
So that's been really good. And the city is coming a little bit more back to life, which also feels nice. There's also a lot of uncertainty at the moment, but in general, it just feels really good to feel somewhat normal, at least for now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was a very similar feeling of New York City too, is that everybody for a long time was sitting at home. Streets were so empty and it felt like, oh my God, I never lived through this before. What is it going to be like? How long is it going to take? You know, and now that everything is in full bloom again, it's, you know, people are kind of like, well, we're still in the pandemic, but it's like things are normal. And so it feels like back to the life that we know.
Yeah, a little bit more. I hope that after the winter, maybe after this flu season and everything, things will really be back to normal because they're already threatening again with the possibility of another short lockdown over here. So the numbers have been going up a little bit. Yeah, so there's still a lot of uncertainty in the air. So we're just going to take it one day at a time, though.
Yeah, that's all you.
That's all you can do, huh?
Keep yourself safe and masks and
exactly
doing all the time, and of course your own immunity, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So I read your bio and I, you know, quite a few that I have. So I want to just acknowledge I'm very curious of your practices, and you would love to give you space to talk about them as the questions roll out. But first, let's start chronologically with your origin story. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got how you first became or understood your own kinkiness?
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because I actually, when I read a lot of interviews with dominatrixes, they say, well, I always knew that I was a dominatrix, or I was already tying boys up when I was 5 years old or something. And I definitely was not like that. I was very shy, and my parents were very religious and very conservative, and sex was always a very dirty topic. And there was not a lot of room for like I don't know, personal expression. It was just yeah, kind of a stifling environment growing up. I would say that I had small urges that which I understand were the beginning of certain fetishes, but I was so good that I just really didn't understand what any of that really meant. So you know, there were small inklings and things already when I was quite young. But so I would say that I was kind of a fetishist before anything else, and then maybe I think femme came much later. I always had these sort of vanilla relationships, but was always ultimately quite unhappy and didn't really understand why. um, so I think everything sort of started quite a bit later. When I was in college, actually, it was the first time I was in a studio, and it was a Domina in Boston, and she's still active today, I think, in other parts of the Northeast. I don't know what name she's using these days, though, but I remember being 22 or something, going into a studio for the first time and being like, wow, there was a baby room. I'll never forget this. And I was like, it was just like something I had never seen before, you know. And I think that the whole kink thing was always parallel to whatever I was doing at the time, because I'm kind of coming from the goth scene, and at all the goth parties there was always like a play area, or you know, a dominatrix doing something, or the fashion was also quite similar.
Yeah.
The music, I don't know, it was always sort of a parallel element maybe to what I was doing. But I didn't get into it until much later. And it was, yeah, I don't know. I was in a fashion show actually, and I played a dominatrix. It was it was sort of a performance fashion show. And then people were coming up to me afterwards, and they were like, yeah, maybe you're interested in doing a session. Can I come see you? And I was like, what do you mean? Yeah, so it was all quite new. And because I was working in the music industry for quite a long time, so I was very focused on that. And yeah, I didn't really start even playing really intensely until probably 2015, 2016, that I was started to play really more intensely in my private life. You know, I'd had experiences here and there, but when it sort of became a more regular thing, and going out to clubs and these sort of clubs, and then I started doing some small things here and there just to see if I could. I wanted to kind of test the waters, you know. I remember the first time I had a session was just like some guy from some website, you know. And he was like, I'll pay you this amount to kick me in the balls. And I was like, only kicking you in the balls? He was like, yeah. So we did that. And then I just remember it was so thrilling, and he was so happy and I was so happy. And I was like, wow, like both of us just really got what we wanted from this interaction, you know. And this is what really encouraged me, like this kick that I felt from that moment, to start really trying it even more. And then eventually I got the courage up to start talking to a few studios, because I wanted to learn from, I mean, here in Berlin, in Germany, it's considered part of sex work, and it's very regulated. And there still are quite a lot of big, well-known studios here. And I was very lucky to land at Avalon, where I was trained and mentored. And yeah, I just was in really good hands there. And it's a bit of a more, it's one of the oldest, it was one of the oldest studios in Germany. It has quite a legendary reputation, and just a big legacy, and a lot of amazing mistresses there. So I was really lucky that I could, instead of sort of feeling my way out through everything, I kind of jumped right into it and learned from the best very quickly. So that was good.
Yeah, that's an ideal situation, because so many of us kind of come through it, through the side door, or through maybe another type of studio that doesn't have the best reputation, or it's a lot of patchwork training. So it sounds like I've definitely heard of Avalon, and I've heard of the legendary aspect of how, as in Europe, sex work is a little more acceptable, especially BDSM. And so people, there isn't quite as much shame or stigma around it. So people can kind of engage with it a little more immersively too.
Absolutely.
I'd heard about the, I guess the offerings of kidnapping that Avalon had, and I was like, what?
This was sort of before my time there, but these were really legendary events. Like every person that I talk about Avalon with, who has been a part of in the constellation for maybe 10 years ago or something. So I was like, oh my God, I'll never forget the kidnapping events. So like, apparently just the way that they timed everything, they would have people waiting at very specific times, at 12:10, you're going to be here. And then the person would be there, and then they would just roll by with a van and get him and take him somewhere and then come back for the next one.
Wow.
It was just a very German operation. Very, very organized.
like a conveyor belt.
But so they wouldn't see each other when they were being kidnapped, but it was all, within this period of time. Then they would put them in different areas in the Avalon residence, which is quite a big venue. And maybe it wasn't a ton of people, maybe 8 or something, and it was just, everybody was just marveling at how well organized this kidnapping was.
So efficient. Yeah. Well, I love that.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that's what everybody comes up with. Like a lot of the states are like, I'll never forget the kidnappings.
Well, that's something that really sparked my interest like a long time ago. And of course, living in a very populated city like New York, you could feasibly get away with something like that if you kind of like frame it as a filming, like if somebody's filming it for television or something.
True.
But that's a whole other production. Otherwise, everybody nowadays has their own little cell phone cameras, and so if it was without the context of that whole filming, then everybody would be trying to capture it themselves, thinking it was a real kidnapping. So that was kind of like a technicality that I was trying to work out, like, how do I make a kidnapping?
True. I can see that. Okay. Well.
So you came through Avalon, and can you talk about I guess so you had talked about the charge that you felt when you first experienced your session with the ball busting guy, which led you to kind of like go further in. What kind of things have you I guess learned about yourself through these experiences?
This is really so much. I when I think about the person I was when I started doing this and the person that I am now, it's really unbelievably different. I don't know. I was in a rough place at the time that I started, and I think kind of becoming this persona, this becoming Bella, like stepping out of my normal self, becoming Bella for a while, doing this. It really gave me some sort of confidence that maybe I didn't have before. It was like, okay, if I put on this hat, then I can handle these situations. I mean, it was a really, really rough time that I was kind of coming out of. And so it was a little bit about not only the domina bringing out this inner strength, but also a lot of important lessons that I learned about people at that time. That people are really not black and white. I learned a lot about men, I think, also. I became more compassionate, I think, towards men, which is kind of a strange thing to say for Dominatrix to say. But I just realized how fragile they are. There was a lot of, they became more human to me. Like, I don't know, there was quite a lot of things that I just learned about people in general. and in addition to myself, and like an intense, like a lot of maturity happened in those years for me on all levels, I think. And I think that's been kind of the best thing about this whole trip, you know.
Yeah,
Mm.
I would definitely agree with you on all accounts of learning about yourself and coming more like into your own power,
Yes.
and
Mm.
having more confidence, um,
Mm.
and also the more passionate, um, you know, just learning that people are not so black or these like pure people.
Yes,
It
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
it's
Yeah,
multidimensionality and kind of like is and complete of their lives and why they are the
absolutely.
way that they're. And I think that as far as uh, the the archetype of the dominate, you know, like we come into this I first, you know, upon first exposure, this fierce, you know, kind of scowly, mean lady, you know, and just
Yeah.
like doesn't get it and just wants to like people and is
Just
extremely
yeah,
sick.
exactly.
And,
Mm.
and then you her and you realize she is the embodiment of many other archetypes as well,
Yes.
and being compassionate and there's kind of aspect of nurturing and therapeutic, you know,
Yes.
caring, as well as other things that, you know, that would happen within a scene, you know, are
Yeah.
more what other people see. You know, that's kind of the little bubble of like dominatrix that people see, but then like outside of that bubble, there's so much more to dominatrix.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think also when I started playing more intensely privately, I was actually playing with a male dom, and he was also quite a big influence because he showed me really also a nurturing side of dominance, which I hadn't really experienced too much of up until that point. And coming from a man, this was also quite refreshing, especially because we experimented with a lot of things that I had no experience with before, like breath play and stuff. But in a very in a way that helped me to understand that this is so much more than just hitting people. It's ultimately about trust and about the relationships between people.
Mhm.
So that really also opened me up to the psychological aspects of BDSM, which I would say is really my favorite part of it all.
Yes,
Mm,
me too.
yes.
Um, yeah, I totally I was actually just talking about this the other day, is that it's always intrigued me, these interactions between people, because I grew up as an only child and very isolated, so I wasn't
Okay.
around a lot of people when I was young. I didn't know like what people's interior lives were like.
Yeah.
And then getting to work with so many people on such an intimate and vulnerable way,
Mm,
you start to, you know, see people
yes.
and kind of like who they are when they're scared, or who they are that, that they're not showing the rest of the world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
think we have a very privileged position that we see people in ways that they maybe never even show their partner, or maybe nobody ever besides us knows this. And this is a very privileged look into people's lives that we have, you know? Yeah,
yes, yeah, it's a
absolutely.
very privileged look, and it's also there's a sense of responsibility and ethics, I think, that comes with that, you know.
Yes.
And I wanted to, of course, talk a little bit more about um, later on down the line. I'd like to ask you more about your sex education and empowerment coaching.
Hmm. Hmm.
But before we get to that, I would like to also ask you a little bit more about the evolution of your own sexuality through kind
Hmm.
of like seeing other people expose theirs to you.
Hmm. Okay. Um, yeah. I think, I mean, I also kind of, like I said, working in a big studio like this is just very different than I think a lot of other sex workers experiences, because I think a lot of people, even in England, for example, they work alone a lot of the times. In Germany, we still have the situation where you're in a studio with many different mistresses. So it was just so much intense input all the time from several years, which was great. I feel like I had a lot of catching up to do in a
Mhm.
way. Um, I feel like I have a new obsession every week. Like every week there's something. Okay, this week I'm really into this, or I'm really into clamps this week, or this week I'm really into full body like nylon sleeping sex, or like I don't know. There's always something that's coming. Like I just think I don't think I could ever. I can't imagine not being this way anymore. Like being a person who is so deeply into fetishes, for me, it's just so fascinating. And sometimes you think you understand a fetish, and then you have a session guest who kind of shows you their view of it from a way that you didn't even think about before. I mean, it's just like deepening. Every interaction is sort of deepening your knowledge, and those experiences also, you sit at home and think about the stuff yourself.
Mhm.
um, I wasn't really the type of person who even did much kink at home in the beginning, and now I have like this is my for sitting around the house catsuit, and just like it's infiltrated like every level of my life now. Really, I don't ever have really submissives at home, like people who would come to the studio. Like I don't know. I'm very private about my life, my private life and my home environment and stuff. So but so there was a time where I was really not really lifestyle at all, like really mainly just doing pro-doming,
Mhm.
and I kept this side of and also my home environment is very, separate. But I
Mm.
feel like it's just the longer I'm doing this, the more it's sort of taking over and infiltrating my life. And yeah, I can't imagine it really any other way at this point.
Mm.
So
Yeah, it's definitely spread into many different parts of my life as far as just the most essential level of kink and femdom being kind of like power exchange.
right,
And
yeah.
yeah, and getting to if I'm like out in the street and somebody starts talking to me and I don't really want to talk to them,
Right,
I will kind of like take my power back.
yeah,
If it's like one time this person was just asking me lots of questions, and I said all of us I was just like, why are you asking me so many questions, and just kind of started
right,
asking him questions.
right,
And and it's so
absolutely.
satisfying. Yeah, it's something that a lot of people don't expect.
Yeah,
And I love seeing the way that that kink and femdom have kind of pervaded other people's lives in ways that maybe they're not even pros, maybe they're not even like professional doms, but they have come into contact with it somehow or been exposed to it in some way, and they have started taking back their power too, and
mm,
feeling more of that personal empowerment through just kind of whatever media they're absorbing. That I
exactly. No,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm trying to do also with this women's empowerment coaching. That's the idea.
Mhm.
The idea started when I joined a Facebook group that's quite big here in Berlin. It's like an international women's group on Facebook. There's quite a big expat community here, so there's a lot of women from all over the world in this group. And I would see a lot of them ask you questions pertaining a lot to relationship advice, a lot of venting, just explaining things that was happening in their current relationships, and what should I do? Or I was just always amazed at the way they would feel like they were powerless in situations, and it was almost like people were echoing their frustration over things, but they weren't really doing anything about it, or setting boundaries, or having frank conversations, being open and honest, or I don't know, just people would be like, "How do I tell my partner that I don't want to do this?" Like, you just tell them that you don't want to do it. Like, I don't. And sometimes what I'm realizing is that people don't. I think a lot of women who are not particularly dominant, who feel submissive in relationships, they just don't have the vocabulary. They don't know what to say. So I
Mhm.
felt like giving them very easy sentences even was just kind of a start. Like they were feeling a lot of emotions, feeling that things weren't fair, or feeling upset about something, but they didn't know how to say that. And I think sometimes just giving people the tools to be able to express themselves in a way which is clear and mature and informative is just also, we understand in BDSM that communication is completely important, and that a dialogue is continuously happening throughout a session. But I think vanilla people don't understand that so much, when you haven't had these sort of lessons in consent and the dynamics of consent and stuff. When this is not a part of your daily life like it is ours, then I think sometimes people just, like I said, they just need the right tools. So so it's not just about like coaching people how to, do kinky things with each other, but also how to communicate. What's the point also?
Yeah. Definitely areas that I'm lacking in my own when I started ProDomme thing. I was like, how
Yeah.
do I talk to the, how do I, my headmistress taught me like basic, techniques and safety, but she didn't teach me anything about the dialogue and the psychology. And
Right.
those were the two things that I found most intriguing,
Yeah.
was like, how do you talk to somebody? How do you get in their head? How do you stay in their head? And then how do you know like what to say next?
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I find that even when you're not in kink, when you're talking to somebody, uh, communities even, the words that you
Mhm.
choose are so important because it's like casting spells. And
Yes, absolutely. Mm.
and when you can only speak negative, like, "I don't want that," it's not helpful. It just
Yeah.
starts to feel like, "Okay, well, you know, what right, I feel like I do everything wrong." So yeah,
Mhm.
that's really for empowerment, is choosing the right word, using the right
Yeah.
words in vocabulary, and it's so great doing that too because
Yeah.
yeah, it's we need everywhere we need that. We need somebody to do that for that's really great.
Yeah, I feel like even things that we see as very not a big deal, just saying no. Just women don't. I'm not saying all women, obviously, but what I read about in this group was it's not even with partners, but I mean even at work, saying no to extra work that is not, is just more work on your plate and you can't handle. You're not getting paid for. How do I say no? And it's like, well, you just say no.
Yeah.
I can't. I mean, how do people? There's this thing with guilt. I feel guilty for setting my boundaries.
Mhm.
But what I've learned about men in sessions, for example, is if you try to do something with them that they don't want, they will say no very quickly, and
Mhm.
they will. I mean, they have no problem being like no.
Yeah.
So why do women have the same sort of issue? I find this interesting, and a lot of it mainly was this sort of communication. People don't trust themselves to be able to communicate in that way directly,
Mm.
with maybe without getting over emotional, or just communication doesn't have to be painful. It's
Yeah.
better this way. But another thing was really with body images, like body image. I think a lot of women are very hung up on things about their body. They don't feel confident to maybe try new things, or they just don't feel confident in sex at all because of their body. But what I learned while doing sex work is that there's just so many different kinds of bodies that do sex work.
Mhm.
And they have super fans, like every single one of them, no
Mhm.
matter what you look like. I mean, you could be quite round, you could be anything, and there's someone who thinks you're the most amazing person in the world the way that you are. And I think that women are actually, I say women in this way because it's it is a very cis full women's group, but it is open to all women, not just women or whatever. But know what I'm trying to say?
Women, yes.
All the women
Yeah,
out there.
trans women, people who identify as femmes, but maybe weren't born
Exactly.
in a woman's body, or like
Yeah.
anybody that identifies that feels the woman within them.
Exactly, and they're all part of sex work too. And every person out there has just people who think that they're the most amazing, beautiful creature who has ever existed. And I think when that was the thing with me when I started doming, people were like, "Wow, your legs, mistress, your legs," and I'm like, "Really? I never really thought about my legs like this way before." And then I realized they're one of my best assets, actually. And I think when you have these sort of super fans fawning over you, you start to see things, you start to look at yourself in a different way, you know. And what it's just what I realize is like men don't like all one sort of thing. They like all kinds of things. Like lots of people like all different kinds of bodies. And I just felt like a lot of the people in this group were maybe not very confident about themselves. And you know, there's really no reason to not be confident about yourself. And that's, in some ways, I think that's the only thing that's holding them back, you know.
Yeah.
Not really embracing themselves how they are, which is always easier said than done. But that's a lesson that I also just learned from sex work, is that every body is appreciated by somebody else.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's a very illuminating kind of gesture to be able to see that that we're all that you, like you said, that there is a somebody for everybody, and that
yeah,
there's
absolutely.
that our gift as individuals isn't like the shape of our bodies, it's what
Mm,
we put into the world. And no matter what shape you're in,
mm,
you are still bringing something very special and unique into the world, just being
yeah,
yourself.
absolutely.
And I definitely believe that capitalism and patriarchy are responsible for creating this
Yeah,
media image of the model woman
yeah,
figure. And of
exactly.
course, sells more products when people don't feel happy with themselves. And
Sure. Yeah,
it makes people, feel inadequate. And so that runs very deep, but like
yeah,
if you can get these people to feel inadequate from a very young age, then you have a customer base,
yeah,
there's like becoming conscious of how capitalism runs so much of what we think is wrong with ourselves.
yeah,
Then we can overcome that a lot more easier.
yeah.
Yeah, it's it's a shame that that there's so much unlearning that we have to do in order just to love
Absolutely.
ourselves.
Absolutely. And it takes so long. It's really a process. But I feel especially bad if that is the reason that people just don't enjoy having sex with their partner, because they don't feel good about themselves. And I feel like surely there are things that we can do to teach people. Okay, well, you don't always have to be naked. You could wear small things here and there, like accent certain areas of your body, or there's so many ways to be sexual instead of just one way. And I
Yeah.
think that's also something that's a good lesson for people to learn. I mean, think about, explore yourself and find what feels good to you.
Mhm.
What do you feel good in? And if you feel good in them, then stay in this outfit while you're doing things.
Yeah.
There's it's not black and white. And
Mm.
just to teach people to have a little bit more grace with themselves, I think is also important. So
Yeah,
exactly.
definitely. S-
Exactly.
So this education and empowerment endeavor that
Mhm.
you're doing, is this alongside your ProDomme career as well?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So we haven't started yet. So basically, I will do different kinds of workshops. There will be some. I will also offer some sort of SM 101. The focus is simply on women identifying individuals, that they can yeah, just gain some confidence, feel empowered in their sexuality, and feel good about it. And that will be done here at the Studio Lux in Berlin. We have a giant, nice, big course room where we can have people there, and we can do demonstrations. And so there will be some sort of BDSM 101 for people who are interested in that. And then there will be more of the empowerment coaching also. And I would like to do events as well. So, but that's all still kind of being worked out. So,
Okay.
so we'll see. I was very inspired by Mistress Tessa's vanilla corruption parties that she does.
Oh, I love the name.
Yeah.
It's such a great name.
Yeah, it's totally her concept, and I've been talking to her a little bit about it, if it would be possible to do like a German version, and so I wanted to do that all with her blessing and stuff. So that's definitely still something that needs to be discussed and worked out. But I've loved this idea ever since I found out about it. Basically she'll have many women and then some slaves, and then they're kind of serving everybody at the party, and these women have never seen active BDSM play before, so they come and they have wine and they have little snacks, and then they enjoy themselves. They see things done for the first time, the men are serving them, and so the kick for the men is that they're, you know, they kind of get to be the first BDSM experience that these women ever saw, and then their kick is also just like watching how this all unfolds.
Yeah.
So I love it. I've been so jealous. I've wanted to attend one of Tessa's vanilla corruption parties for a while now, and I just really love the idea. So hopefully, with her blessing, I'll be able to do something like that here as well, because I think it would be a lot of fun. And the Berlin community is missing something like that at the moment. So
like entry level type kinky stuff.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that that's super important because you know, BDSM is kind of this like kind of lofty idea that a lot of people can't really get their heads around, because they're like, how do I fit into it as somebody who's a beginner? Where do I start? You know, like I'm scared by all of it. I don't know. I can't afford a ProDomme session.
Right.
Don't know where to go. And so an event is something that takes the pressure off of like having to be one-on-one with somebody and perform all the, you know, all the submissive things that are expected of you, or, you know, this things in people's heads.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun. So
make it fun.
I hope we can do something like that.
In that vein, I wanted to ask you if you think that kink and BDSM and alternative sexuality in general are becoming more accepted in kind of the environment and society that you occupy.
Well, Berlin's a little bit special for that. In Germany, in general, the attitude is quite relaxed. I know that. And I think in the States, because you know I'm from the States originally, so I think I think that in the States there's quite a long ways to go. But I think there was a recent poll here that said, "Do you think we should make sex work illegal again?" And I think like 80% of the population said no. So in Germany, they're quite you know forward you know with that. They're not so conservative and stuff, and Berlin is really kind of a kinky party capital for sure. So yeah, I think here everything is fine. We're bordering some countries which are definitely a lot different. I mean, for example, I know a lot of mistresses from Poland, and I know that in Poland, I mean, they've had a rough time recently with the stricter abortion laws and everything else. We're definitely fortunate here that we can do what we like. And in general, there's definitely much more censorship happening. I feel like in German society, it's not really a problem. That where I'm seeing things becoming stricter and sort of regressing is the online space, which I'm sure you can also relate to as well. I mean, losing Instagram profiles. Yeah. Just your social media just disappearing suddenly. I mean, I just see it. I see it in very small ways, which I'm sure you notice as well. If you're trying to use 9, type words like orgasm or something like that, it won't predict any of those words, you know? And it's like, it's not a bad word. And recently, a friend of mine who's a writer, he was actually writing a book in Microsoft Word, and it had a section about this girl who liked to be beaten until a certain point or something, and then it actually came up like a warning, like what you are writing might offend some people. Like, are you sure that you want to write this? Like,
On
I'm seeing,
Microsoft.
yes, he's a writer,
Wow.
like he was writing a story, and it was like, what you're writing is too disturbing. It's like, well, I'm writing, like, it's fiction. It's an I mean, I'm seeing censorship now starting to creep in at this sort of level, which I find really disturbing. And so it's not so much about maybe the society that I'm in physically, but our online world, which is becoming a scarier place to navigate.
Yeah, that is very disturbing, and it's also something that I see a lot of sexuality experts and sex workers kind of, they're standing their ground, and they're saying things like, I'm not going anywhere, but this is
Yeah.
becoming more challenging. But here are some tips to circumvent,
Yes.
which
Yes.
I think is so helpful and brilliant. But also, it still becomes so exhausting to keep having to fight this, just to exist
Yeah.
as we are. And I think that ultimately what we are doing is a service, a public service, because
Mm.
the more that sex and sexuality are kept in the dark, of course, another tool for control, another tool for
Absolutely.
capitalism to
Mm.
thrive. So I definitely see this clash of powers.
Yeah.
It's like control and truth kind of like coming, head to head, and
Yes.
I'm very positive and optimistic about the truth being, the thing that wins.
Yeah.
That we all kind of start gravitating toward us, like this needs to be talked about and aired
Yes.
out, because it will affect everybody. But sex workers are kind of the canary in the coal mine,
Yes, that's
to
true.
use that analogy of like, things that happen to us will eventually happen to everybody else. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the general public takes it seriously. We're not just like crying wolf or something, or whining about things. We're in the front line, and these other people behind us are you and your mom and
Yes.
everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I got in trouble with this. We have very strong youth protection laws, like parent advisory laws and things in Germany. I got in trouble for my Twitter account, and they basically threatened me with exorbitant fines to the tune of €500,000 because I am spreading pornography. They said that they sent a picture of me sitting on a slave. Now, he was not restrained in any way. Nobody was naked. I wasn't brandishing a whip in my hand or anything. I was literally just sitting on a man. And apparently, I forget the exact quote, but they told me that I was encouraging youth to become irresponsible social personalities, was like the quote.
That
And
is
yeah, and they said that, that I'm damaging children and stuff like that. And as a result of that, I had to shut down my OnlyFans for quite a while. It's been relaunched, but I was just, there was a lot of things that happened, and I just kind of shut down a lot of these things. And they were like, yeah, you're harming the children. I'm like, well, what about the child that I have, which I pay his food for with the money that I earn? The job that I'm doing is not illegal in Germany. I pay taxes.
right.
I have a registered business,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, is it my responsibility to censor myself on a platform like Twitter, or is it maybe your responsibility to keep an eye on what your children are doing?
Yeah.
I think that's also something about it, and I have to advertise my business somehow. What I'm doing is not illegal, so
Exactly.
there's a lot of these weird little loopholes that we're navigating all the time, and it is definitely stressful, and it does take a toll on you in general sometimes. And
Yeah. Yeah.
but I mean, still, yeah.
I feel like it takes a toll on us because it doesn't make sense,
Yeah, right.
It's it's totally hypocritical,
I know.
and
I
it's meant to
know.
serve one very narrow agenda, which is not everybody's agenda, and
Yeah.
is not even universally agreed upon.
Yeah.
And so it's like, they're trying with all these tactics and very far-fetched reasons to do what they're doing, but
Yeah.
ultimately it's the fear of some people that's
Yes.
driving this whole agenda. It's
Yeah.
fear.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I just wish that people could see the benefits of education in dispelling this fear. You know, if
Yes.
these adults who are legislators or whatever could educate themselves a little bit better, then
Yes.
maybe, I don't know, maybe we wouldn't have as many, you know, issues.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things going on Twitter. You can be some random anonymous person, post whatever you want, but just because I am a professional and I have my contact information there, then of course I'm low-hanging fruit for these sort of media controllers to go. So also a bit ridiculous, but yeah, that's what we're dealing with.
I think it's also this problem of like being a female, being a woman, being a very attractive woman, and being sexual versus being sexualized. Like
Yes, exactly.
you're not the sex object, you're the objectifier.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, you can use all kinds of like bouncing boobs to sell shampoo, but the second I sit on a man, I am like creating irresponsible social personality.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely very hypocritical in every sense, but we're just kind of, they can't get rid of us. We're just going to come back every time. So
Yep.
let
And
them
we're gonna
try.
bounce those boobs too.
Yeah, we're going to bounce our own boobs when we
Yes,
want.
and we're gonna feed babies with them as well.
Yes, exactly.
Oh goodness.
Oh.
Um, so can you I would really love to hear more about kind of your, I guess, more practical, and no, you know what, you already talked about that. You're gonna be teaching these workshops at
Mhm.
the Lux studio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and are you okay, so you'd also mentioned in your bio your return to the music industry.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. Um, so yeah, so I had quite a successful career in the music industry. I was working for a famous DJ, and I was his tour manager. And I did I did label management and artist management. I had my own PR agency for a while, so and managed multiple labels. So, but I had a bit of a burnout and kind of stepped out of this for a while. Um, and the idea to do a label came actually from the idea, what would I like to do? The idea was to kind of fuse my worlds together. So this
Mm.
world of BDSM and then music all together. The idea was to release music that I would actually play during sessions. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I was very inspired by a lot of the sort of classic fetish albums that everybody knows, and things that I have found randomly. Like when I was working in Stuttgart a few weeks ago, I was going through the drawers and found these CDs from the '90s. Was listening to them, and like I just discovered some really cool stuff. The music in a session is very important. I was always amazed at how bad music people can tolerate in a session.
Yeah, agree.
Or even when I was reading lists, people would do like their favorite records or their favorite songs, like doing playlists and stuff like that. I would always see songs like "I Want to Be Your Dog" by Iggy Pop, and I'm like, that's a great song, but it's not really something that you want to like sensually pinch someone's nipples to. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't have the right vibe.
It's really not the right vibe.
Yeah.
So every for me, I like a lot of different things. I listen to a lot of dark ambient sessions. If I listen to techno, then it's kind of a certain kind, and I'm very picky about the sounds.
Yeah.
So I wanted to use this sort of tastemaker side, and then kind of going back to contacts that I had in the music industry. I'm still quite connected with a lot of artists, and start talking to them. And the label is called Dressing for Pleasure, and it's going to. The idea was, of dressing for pleasure. That this is music, which is also for pleasure.
Yeah.
Immersing yourself in an atmosphere.
Yes.
Which the best kind of music in a dungeon is that it doesn't take away from the scene or what's happening, but it very much creates an atmosphere. And there's a lot of different music which is suitable for different things.
Mhm, mhm.
So the whole idea for the releases and the plans for the releases have sort of been changing a lot along the way, but We have a mix coming soon. We have our logo and sort of branding will be done soon. And I'm going to be releasing the records on 12-inch and also digitally through our Bandcamp page. So this is all in development, but this is definitely like a Herzensangelegenheiten is the word in German. So a matter of the heart. A matter of the heart is what it means.
Okay.
So this is definitely something that I'm super passionate about doing. It's not just a label to like pump out random music. It all kind of has to work really within the concept. So I'm really excited about it, and we're going to be working with a video artist to do some short like video clips with parts of the songs, and we're working together with some really great partners. Already have signed some tracks, and quality is very important to me, so we'll be working with a really great mastering engineer, and it's going to be really nice. And yeah, I'm talking to some big fetish events about maybe curating the music there.
Yeah.
So there's because also the DJs that play at a lot of these fetish parties are, no offense to them, but I don't know, it's sort of always like the same like fetish greatest hits over and over again.
Yep.
And I just feel like there's so much room for improvement in a lot of these things. So
Yes.
so yeah, so we're working on this all the time.
Oh.
There's a lot of different things going on, but they're all quite good. So yeah.
This really speaks to my soul, because I completely agree with you about music and how it is a form of dressing for the atmosphere.
Yes.
It's like one of the things that occupies the senses,
Yes.
and along with like smell and lighting and textures,
Yes, totally.
what do we dress the ears with?
Yeah.
And having that aural AURAL experience really kind of completes the whole
Absolutely.
atmosphere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I just put your Spotify
Oh, nice. Thank
link
you.
up
Yeah.
here for anybody
Mhm.
that would like to do a little further investigation into your musical tastes.
Yes.
And I think
Very
that
good.
you're absolutely right about these kind of like um, overplay fetish BDSM or
Yes.
like kind of club hit. And then like at my old dungeon, we also had somebody who did playlist for us and would play our own music. But they would use that, like you mentioned, have the word, have maybe the right lyrics, but right
Mhm.
vibe. So they were always a very distant kind of playlist.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I
I
would love to hear your top 3, like, albums or songs that create of the kinda scene that you would like to.
My top 3. Okay. So I would say there's 2 artists. Well, there's 2 artists that I really like that are quite dark. This is on the dark ambient spectrum, and one of them is named Deutsch Nepal, and then there's Lustmord is another one, and those artists they just do exquisite dark sound design. You know, I'm talking like doing recordings in like crypts and tombs and things, like
Oh, cool.
using really atmospheric sounds. And when you play that in a session, it's a bit like an arty sort of haunted house music almost.
Oh, yes.
So it's not really musical. It's more about like the atmospheres that are happening, and it really sounds like the depths of hell. I mean, you can really
Mm.
create like a very scary environment with music like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
exactly. Like I would say, yeah. So there's tons of records from both of those artists, which are really good. There's a lot of other stuff that I like. I don't know. It's so hard to pick like 3.
Well, that's okay. You named
But
2, so you're doing great.
those two are quite good. Of course, I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it. There's a lot of albums that I really like 100th Window by Massive Attack is one that I play all the time in sessions. Not Mezzanine and not a lot of not the typical Massive Attack
Yeah.
albums, but yeah, because they also have a lot of meaning to me because they were albums that I listened to the first time I remember the first time I listened to 100th Window, I was doing a session with Lady Lilith in the latex room at Avalon, and it just went the whole length of the session, and it just was so perfect. In the moment, we were doing like sounding, and it was just like a lot of heavy rubber, and somehow under this green light and everything, it just was kind of magical. And you have these like, wow, what are we listening to? Sometimes you have, you have stuff like that in a session. Someone puts something on, you're like, wow. So yeah, so a lot of when it comes to electronic music, a bit of sparse sort of electro is quite a bit of like futuristic, but not heavy is also quite good. There's just so many different ways you could go. My Bella Lugosi session playlist on my Spotify though it's updated from time to time. A lot of songs have been on there a while, but I sort of add things and take away things to it from time to time. So that's a really nice look at a lot of different kind of music, a lot of different sounds and genres and stuff. So
Beautiful.
I think if people listen to that, they'll get an idea what I'm going for.
Oh, wonderful. So I think we can take a few questions.
Okay.
Because I love hearing about this music, and I want to let people kind of like maybe explore your Spotify as well. And then we're also running a little bit to the end of our hour, so definitely want to allow some people to ask questions. And we've got some people that have already submitted their questions, of course, because they were so eager. So we've got Bobcat, who is a regular, he's a wonderful audience and fan. And he says, what advice would you give yourself just starting out if you could go back to the beginning of your Dom journey?
What advice would I give to myself in the beginning of my Dom journey? It's going to sound really ridiculous, but the answer would be don't buy really cheap latex. I think when I started, like, to be fair, when I started, I really didn't have like much of any stuff. And, in an effort to sort of like amass things very quickly, you just sort of like, and then later on, it's just, a nightmare. I think if you would let yourself receive more gifts back in the days, there was definitely that. I mean, I feel pretty comfortable about my development in terms of how I handle situations or things like that. I think I would probably have a lot of more practical advice that I myself personally could use. But I'm quite happy with the way my development progressed. I felt like I was always so sort of secure at Avalon or with my mentors or with the other ladies around that I was lucky that everything just sort of developed in a nice way. I never had any bad confrontations or I don't know, just tricky situations where I needed help. It was always sort of in good hands. And so I would say it would probably be more practical things. Don't take a nap after Dom drop hits you. Like, just clean the studio and get out of there is another one.
Okay, yeah, I've been there too. Yeah, practical advice is actually really welcome because it's so many, all across the board. Like I think everybody could use practical advice just in life in general.
Absolutely.
Those are really the best answers, though. Let's see. Bobcat has another question because he wanted to submit his questions before he got on an airplane. So what are some of the most rewarding aspects of being a Dom for you?
For me, I think it's the lifestyle that we sort of live, the working for yourself, having time for things, just the totally not usual, typical 9-to-5 schedule. I can sort of condense my working down. This is a freedom that a lot of people don't have. I work sort of evening hours, which is really attuned to my natural rhythm anyway. I just feel like in every way, it's just like the right job for me. It's just, you show up at the studio, the other ladies are there, everybody's getting ready. It's a very nice environment. Like, it's very uplifting. and creative.
Mhm.
You know, every day is different, and that's what I really like too. Just getting
Yeah.
to know people. Every session is different because every person is different. And for a person, I have a bit of a ADHD brain, so everything about this job sort of lends itself quite well to that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's just having more time for the other things in my life that I care about, not being a slave to this 9 to 5 stuff, and being able to spend more time with my child. Then also, it's just a better work-life balance.
Mhm.
And you show up at work, and there's people who treat you like a goddess and serve you. And I don't know, I sort of can't imagine having a normal job now.
No, never.
I know. I can't. I really
Never.
can't. Yeah. You want me to
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. For how much?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I feel like it's allowed me, some self-preservation that a lot of people don't have. It is a luxury, I think. And that's why when we could work again, I was so thankful. I said, I'm just really thankful I could be back at work doing what I love to do.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, me too.
Mhm.
There's a small, tiny sliver of me that's like, what if what if it all dries up? Because then I'm just kind of like, what I don't know what I would do with myself, you know?
Right.
This is
Yeah.
such the perfect career
Yeah.
for creatives,
Mhm.
for like kind of creating fantasies and experiences for other people that you also
Yes.
enjoy. And it feeds into so many other things, like you're doing the music thing,
Yeah.
which the BDSM feeds into as well.
Exactly.
So it's all the good things.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So one last question, and
Mhm.
before I put this up, always feel free to decline questions if they don't suit you.
Mhm.
He's Michael Brzezinski says, "Hi, in BDSM, what do you think is sadistic about sacking a guy in the nuts?" What is sadistic about that? And a question for both of you: what is your favorite thing about the reaction of a guy when he gets sacked in the nutsack?
What a question.
Right? Wonder what his fetish is.
Yes. Um, well, what do I think is the most sadistic thing about it? Well, obviously the cries, the screams of pain that are elicited.
Yeah.
Um, the fun thing about ball busting is that there's so many different ways you could do it. I mean, it could be as basic as somebody just down on all fours, come up to them and give them a kick. Or you can have some crazy bondage construction. What I did with one of my beloved regulars recently was tying him up, and I had taped sandpaper to the bottom of my boot. And so there's, and then I was just like kicking him with my sandpaper foot. And there's like with any BDSM activity, you can always up the ante a bit by any countless number of ways.
Yes.
So it's not only about the how, but the what, but the how,
Mhm. Yes. And this is where creativity comes in
Yeah,
as such a full spectrum experience, because like if you're a theatrical performer,
yeah,
you can kind of like do some kind of crazy dancing act that's like
yes,
winding up, and then that
exactly.
generates more fear, which I think is a fun
Yes.
sadistic element. um
Exactly. Like acting like you're gonna kick them and then you don't, and then you do suddenly. I mean, that's like just playing with the mind.
yes, yes,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. um yeah, and then what is your favorite thing about the reaction of a guy when he gets
I like it when they're breathing really, like like they're really straining, because you've kicked them in the nuts so hard, and then it's like you're taking their breath away, like
Oh,
literally.
yeah.
Also, many ways.
Yes.
I,
Yeah.
I really like the labored breathing. That's maybe one of my favorite reactions. I love
I like the labor breathing. I like it when it's a real kick and not just a fake kick.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
they like double over and fall down. That's one of my
Yes.
favorite things about the reaction, is when they
Absolutely.
fall on the ground.
Oh yes, I love that too. I love that.
We're not standing anymore.
Right.
Okay, so B Dan fan who says, I highly recommend David Bowie's Outside for darker mood music.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't
Very
seem to
good.
have any more questions.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you are very excited about specifically that you would like to promote at this moment?
I would say if everybody can just get on board with the label, we're gonna have you're gonna have an Instagram. We do have an Instagram page. There's only one picture on it, but the label is called Dressing for Pleasure. Dressing for Pleasure Records, and there's we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and there's not much there because we're still sort of building up our launch. You know, when everything is ready to launch, then it's going to be kind of everything at once. Also, if anybody is on Resident Advisor and would like to add us as a favorite label, that's always helpful. We're there as well, and so there will be I'm doing a dark ambient mix, which is going to be coming out soon, so that'll be kind of like a little bit of a taste. The first record we're doing is more of a synth oriented record. It's going to be very hypnotic, and it's basically inspired by Subspace. So it's going to be sort of very, just hypnotic synth-based music you can sort of lose yourself in. The second record hopefully will be a dark ambient EP, and then the third one will probably do something a bit more techno. So yeah.
Wonderful. So you said, excuse me, Dressing for Pleasure on Resident Advisor, correct?
It's always kind of Dressing for Pleasure rec because we want to distinguish it a bit from the documentary, and we're not, that's a different thing. We took inspiration from the name and stuff, but we have all of our own branding coming, and exactly.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then so this label link right here that is up, this is to get to your label website.
Exactly. And there's we don't have a website yet, but we're on Facebook, Twitter, we don't have Spotify yet, but Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and SoundCloud. So that's where the mix will be, and where people can, if they want to add us on SoundCloud, that's where the first teasers of the releases will be and everything. So
Wonderful. I'm just putting all of these into the chat box so that if anybody wants to cut and paste it, they can easily find it. So we've got Dressing for Pleasure rec, and then it's also on SoundCloud.
Yes,
exactly. Well, Mistress Bella, it has been a total pleasure.
It was very nice talking to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, lovely audience, for asking such thoughtful questions and being very well-mannered. And so I just wanted to let everybody know that this month of November is going to be our last live interview month. We'll have Monday night interview. I know it's sad, it's bittersweet. We're also closing our play space down.
I heard.
And it's by choice. Lucy and I have made this choice rather than having it made for us, which is such a good thing for us to be able to post-pandemic be able to still exist and thrive. So we want to just thank everybody that we've met along this journey, and Mistress Bella Lugosi, we want to thank your loveliness for providing time and energy for us.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much. And we hope to see everybody else next Monday.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.